have the script, so I'm just going to say, you know, have fun, enjoy, and do ask lots of questions to our speakers. Anything else I should say that I have forgotten about already? No. Well, I'm a bit started that. So, again, okay. I'm 44 years old, been playing with computers since I was 10. I've been researching, having fun, cracking, trying to improve the security of passwords for more than 16 years, and as the years passes by, I think that I'm learning more and more, but are still incapable of understanding why passwords still haven't improved in all these years. A long time ago, I was actually military police in Norway, so again, you know, there's nothing you can say or ask me that will offend me. You know, give me your best shot. Go ahead. Please do ask questions, and the way I do only have 25 minutes, I can talk usually for 4 to 8 hours without stopping at all. But I will try to keep down to 25 minutes that I have a lot for myself. This is something that came about to me many years ago. There's a university college in Norway at a place called Gjøvik. They do a lot of research into biometrics and what's called behavioral dynamics and biometrics. And there are two professors there, Patrick and Keystroke, and they have pretty much challenged me earlier, you know, on the topic of passwords being dead, passwords doesn't work anymore. We have all these great biometric solutions that we, you know, really want you to, you know, learn about, understand, and, you know, feel free to try to break them, crack them, circumvent them, bypass them, and so on. And I've been thinking about that now for quite a few years. You may have seen this, you know, like during the past couple of days. There have been media reports coming out, stories coming about some really nice research from France. And these guys have been looking into using canvas information from your browser to look at the battery status of your laptop. And specifically, they've been using Firefox on Linux. And they have found that, based on that, they can, on the server side, they can see the battery status of your computer and basically use that as a very crude way of tracking you and separating you from other people visiting the site, even if you have turned off ad blocker and ghostry and other you know, anti-tracking mechanisms that you might have in place. So it's kind of fun, and this really have made headlines, but still, this is you know, tracking your computer, tracking your browser, tracking your device. What I'm going to talk about is biometrics, where we are tracking you, the human being, typing on the keyboard, walking, running, singing, speaking with your voice, stuff like that. And basically, biometrics are put into two categories now. You have the physiological biometrics, which can be your face, fingerprint, hand, iris scan, or even DNA, which should be, I guess, pretty well known to everyone. If you have seen the announcements for Windows 10, if you have installed Windows 10 already, you know that Windows 10 now also supports the use of face authentication. You can actually just sit down in front of a Windows 10 laptop, be identified automatically by the camera, and be logged in. And not only that, but the latest technology here in Windows 10 is actually using two cameras on the laptop, one of them being infrared. So with two cameras, you have a 3D picture, so you can no longer hold up a picture in front of the camera and get logged in, and using infrared, they will also see that you have, you know, heat in your face, proving that you are a human being. So what we have to do to defeat this is, of course, to build ourselves a latex mask and put in some electricity into it as well, put it on your face and heat it up, and suddenly you may look like, you know, in this level, something like that, to log on. You have a traditional fingerprint, which is used everywhere, you know, iPhones. You have hand recognition, and this is not blocking patterns, but this is, you know, just the way your hand looks. You have the iris scan, and if you talk to researchers into biometrics, they will say that, well, the main problem with using iris scan is actually Tom Cruise. That's the main problem with iris scans. And why? Because people have been watching way too many Tom Cruise movies, where they will in the future use a critical red laser to scan and swipe over your face to recognize your iris. And everybody who is sane to their brain will understand that putting a red laser onto your eyes can actually be dangerous. So biometrics professors, they will say that iris is usually, by most of them, considered something that cannot be deployed with normal people, because they are afraid they are going to get their eyes scanned with a red laser. But what they are actually doing is to use a normal camera to take a picture of your eye. But that doesn't look cool in a science fiction movie. And then you have DNA. And my topic is in the behavioral part of biometrics, which is basically, how you behave, how your voice sounds like, and in this presentation, keystrokes, how you type on a keyboard. And this is pretty cool. There are many things you can do with this. As an example, when you set up an account for a website, you could be using behavioral biometrics to create a biometric profile of how you type in your username and password. And that could be done using, as an example, JavaScript, client-side JavaScript in your browser. And they will build a profile and send the data over to the server and install them. And using small threshold values, each time you log in, you will be typing in your username and your password a little bit different from time to time, but not exceeding the threshold values. So basically, you have two-factor authentication, but the only thing the end user sees is typing in username and password, one-factor authentication if you want. This also identifies you, the human being, not the browser, using cookies as an example. And you can even use this to, identify people visiting your website, even without them having to type anything. Because you can also do behavioral biometrics based on how you use or move the mouse across the screen. And these professors in biometrics, they will also tell you that as soon as you have used a finger to swipe across your screen, your picture gallery on your phone, 4 or 5 times, they already have enough data to start creating a profile on how you actually swipe across the screen. 4 or 5 swipes across the screen, they have a basic profile of you. So you have the keystrokes, you have the mouse movements, you eventually also touch on a screen. With force touch from Apple now, they are kind of detecting, how hard are you pressing on the screen. That can also be used to identify you. And I also learned that when we do touch type, we can essentially set up a keyboard in another room here, tell people to go in and start typing on the keyboard. And without knowing anything about the people going in there, we don't even know the gender. As soon as they have typed 7, 8, 9, maybe 10 keys on the keyboard, we have sufficient data to tell you whether it is a male or female typing on the keyboard. Because there is actually a distinct difference between how men and women type on the keyboard. We can do an enrollment process of this, we are now going to build your biometric profile, and you will do that on account setup. And for the demo sites where you can try this out yourselves on the internet, the process is going to be like, 8 to 10 minutes to finish. But you can also create this profile over a longer period of time just by registering how people do, normal stuff on any kind of website. It takes a little bit more time, but you can build a profile that way as well. And even cooler, you can actually turn this into continuous authentication. If you use a fingerprint, it's basically, you authenticate yourself now, and 1 second afterwards, we don't know if it's actually you behind the phone or the keyboard or whatever you're using. But with behavioral biometrics like keystroke dynamics, we can continuously check to see if it is you typing on the keyboard. So if you hand over the keyboard to somebody else, or for some reason you start just typing everything using your pinky finger on your left hand, then suddenly the computer will lock up. You can't do that. The software already exists. Now, how can we do this, use this for bad purposes? Well, basically, look at the left column and, use your imagination here. I will get back to examples on this. Basically, for Keystroke Dynamics, and this is from BehaviorSec. It's a Swedish startup company, and their software is good. I have no problem recommending their software because I like this technology. Back at PasswordsCon in 2012 in Oslo, I had a professor from NCCon in France talking about this, and I specifically asked him, can you set up a website for me where I can set up an account for myself and try out this technology? I would just type in a username and a password, and you will use that to build a biometric profile of me. And then I can, give away my password to somebody else and see if they are able to log in. And most probably they will fail because they can't type the exact same way as I do. So we are looking at, for how long will you actually keep one button pressed? We will also look at the timings between key press 1 and key press 2. You can also look into a sequence of key presses, and there are other settings as well that may be used. At this laboratory at NCCon in France, they actually have a piece of software that you can download and try out for free. I do have the link on the bottom, and it's a it's a demo software where you will set up password or whatever password you want to try out, and you will type it in. I'll show you. Here I have selected on this one I'm using password, and here you can see the normal pattern, and I did on purpose put in a very short time period between two key presses. And it's like milliseconds, but still you can see the graph go completely haywire. I do have the software on my computer, so afterwards somebody wants to try out and see if they can type exactly the same way as I do, feel free to come out and try it and give it a try. So, examples of how this can be used for evil purposes. One of the challenges that we see for, forensics for government agencies, as an example, police, is to identify people that are trying to stay anonymous, as an example, using a tool network. And what we could do, if we wanted to identify somebody on the tool network, is basically to set up a website that we will lure people into. They will use mouse gestures, maybe they will type something into that website, register for an account, search for, wares or drugs or whatever, and we will build a basic biometric behavioral profile of how they type on a keyboard. And then we will also set up a website on the normal internet where we are able to identify IP addresses, domains, ASN numbers, use tracking cookies for browsers and so on. And we will put that up as well as a fake site trying to see if we can get the same people that register for an account on our fake tool server to also set up on this server. And based on the biometric profile, nothing related to IP addresses, the use of tool, any specific browsers, anything like that. Just based on how you type, we could be able to identify people across the tool network and the normal internet, as an example. Now, this could be useful if you work for the police, as an example. This could be really, really dangerous if you are based in some kind of oppressive regime and you want to do good in the world, and the government wants to identify you, stop you, eventually prosecute or kill you. This could be really dangerous. And I have to say that when this story came out last week in the media, the response from the tool project, as an example, they were not too happy about us releasing this information because, I've got to be honest, we didn't actually think about telling the tool project about this before we released the information. Behavior biometrics can also be very interesting for the advertising people out there, basically because, as an example, instead of identifying the browser, which is becoming increasingly hard because we're using ad blockers, they could be looking into how you behave instead. How you type on a keyboard can easily identify whether it is male or female, trying to do a search on a search engine, as an example. And there's also the insurance claim and non-repudiation problems of this. Somebody watch the time for me, please. It could be something as simple as the bank or the credit card company will tell you that you're not allowed to share the PIN code or your Visa or MasterCard with your wife, your spouse, kids, lover, I don't know. That would be a violation of the end user license agreement. But today, it will be very hard in the court of law for the bank and insurance company to prove that you actually share that information with somebody else. With behavioral biometrics, they will be able to see if it is you or your wife or your kids or somebody else logging into your account. Of course, for many purposes, that can be a good thing. If somebody is logging into your bank account and you didn't give them access, this is a really good way to detect fraud attempts and to block them. But it's basically also like saying that, you have bought a car and you have put car insurance, and one of the license agreements there says that, well, you're paying a very low premium for this insurance because you have agreed never to allow anyone below the age of 25 to drive your car. Now, if for any reason, one day you should happen to do that, imagine then what could happen if the insurance company suddenly was able to prove that, yeah, we know somebody else drove the car. It could be a good thing, but this can also have great implications for privacy. And then there's the issue of password paste. As many of you have seen, especially those really interested in passwords, we have seen over the past year at least, we have seen more and more cases where people like me and others as well, Troy Hunt in Australia, just to mention a few, Paul Moore, Chris McKee in the UK, have in many, many cases went online on Twitter and asking companies, why do you prevent us from using a password manager? Why do you prevent us from pasting in our password into the password field? And the response from every single one has been complete bollocks. Didn't make sense at all. Stupidity from one end to the other. There you go. Could this be? Are they actually doing keystroke dynamics for your password? There are companies that are specifically making software to harden password privacy by adding behavioral biometrics to the password and only to the password, because that doesn't change. That could be a reason for why they are blocking password paste. But what is the problem to us then with blocking password paste? Well, there are ways to circumvent it, of course. But the point is, a very important point, if your password is constructed the way it should be, like 70+ characters, all randomized, I'm pretty sure you don't want to type that in manually for the bank or the insurance company to be able to build a biometric profile. So basically, you will be pretty much forced into going back into, using really crap passwords that are as short as possible. That could be a consequence of applying this specifically to passwords as an example. We, together with Paul Moore in the UK, I've talked to Paul for a couple of years, and this is actually 2 weeks ago. I was sitting up late in the evening talking to Paul on Skype, And I do, as I do a lot of my time in late evenings, I talk to people. And since I can't do any programming at all, I can't even do Hello World, 5 minutes, excellent. I can't even do Hello World in BASIC anymore on Commodore 64. I tend to ask people, would you like a fun little side project that you can play around with during the evenings? And I can't pay you any money, but if we ever meet up, I can get you a coffee or maybe a small pizza or something. and Paul said, oh yeah, that would be great, thanks. So I said, well, here's the challenge. I have these, biometric professors back in Norway, and they are like, in a good way, they're seriously pissing me off with this behavioral biometric stuff. And I've been thinking, how can we defeat this? And my initial thought is, well, I have to type in, my password in the exact same way all the time. So it won't be able to, they won't be able to build a profile of me. And even better, I was actually thinking about, I have to build a Lego robot placed above my keyboard, and I would connect a second keyboard to that Lego robot, and I would type in something that I write on my keyboard, and the Lego robot will type that down onto the keyboard again at a constant pace. So there will be like 30 milliseconds between each key press period. So anyone typing anything will look completely equal. And that's the basic principle of using the tool browser as an example. All the browsers look completely the same way. And I talked to Paul about this, and he said, well, what if we randomize it every time instead? So it won't be possible to build a profile, and they won't be able to build a profile, and they won't be able to verify a profile ever. So that's basically what Paul did. And the proof of concept Chrome plugin for this was one line of JavaScript. And that plugin, which you now can find in the Chrome store, is called Keyboard Privacy. It's completely for free. And basically what the plugin does, it will receive all the keystrokes you are sending into the computer, and then it will cache them for like a couple of milliseconds. The default values are to do randomization between 0 and 50 milliseconds before passing the keystrokes onto the DOM into the web page that you're typing it into. And based on that and the different websites we have tested, we have seen with our plugin that we have gone from 99.98% certainty of me typing down to 0.01% certainty of it being me typing on my keyboard. The plugin is available now. It's been out there for a week. There's a new version most probably coming out today or tomorrow. I'm going to talk about Paul. He's also working on a Firefox version of the plugin. And we have per site possibility of disabling the plugin. Because in many cases, you want to use keystroke dynamics. If you are using incognito mode in Chrome as an example, you may not want to do this. If you're using the tool network, if you're using the tool browser, obviously you want to stay anonymous. And I'm really hoping the tool project will incorporate something like this into the browser pretty quick. Keyboard privacy. And that's basically what I wanted to talk about in this presentation. It's really fascinating. The BehaviorSec and most of the other vendors doing this stuff are using JavaScript. If you're using the tool browser, you have to enable JavaScript for this stuff to work. But basically, there are quite a few websites you cannot use at all without enabling JavaScript as well. And detecting whether a web page is actually using this technology, according to Paul, looks very, very hard to do, if not impossible, because there are so many ways to do it. And as soon as we put this out on Twitter, we also receive word again from the guys in France that also did the battery research, telling us, well, in HTML5, there are options available that allows you to do this biometric profiling using only HTML5. So if you want to block it, like, okay, so what are you going to do? So we're not talking about the end of privacy here, but we most certainly have some challenges up ahead of us. So the next iteration of PasswordScan is going to be at the University of Cambridge in the UK. It's going to be 3 full days. It's going to be part academic, meaning we are looking for academic research, academic papers to be submitted. The CFP there ends actually in less than 4 weeks on September the 1st. And for normal talks like I've done now, without an academic paper to go, the CFP submission date is October 15. So I'm really hoping to see lots of submissions for Cambridge as well. I've been told that we will most probably do an evening dinner one of the days at Trinity College, which is the university college in the world with the highest number of Nobel Prize winners in the world. And we're going to do it at Trinity College, which, as I'm told, will remind you quite a lot about Harry Potter. So that's going to be really, really good. And that's basically what I had to say. Contact details and everything is up here. Video recordings will be online, hopefully in a couple of days, maybe a week or 2. You can find me on Twitter, you can find me on LinkedIn or Facebook. I even use phone still, if you want to call me. Signal, anything. Yeah, it's old stuff. I don't do faxes anymore. But that's basically it. Thank you for coming to listen to my talk, and we'll have a very short break before the most wonderful guy, Jeff from Agile Bits, the creators of OnePassword, is going to do the next talk. So, thank you.